Welcome to Left, Right, Center, where we are covering Colorado politics first on CBS News Colorado. I'm political reporter Sean Boyd. The state legislature will begin debate this coming week on the long-awaited property tax relief bill. The measure would allow residents to exempt 10% of their home's value up to $75,000 from taxation, which the bill sponsor says equates to nearly $800 million in tax relief. But it's not enough to stop the proponents of two ballot measures from moving forward. They want to cut the residential assessment rate to near 2022 levels and then cap future revenue growth at 4% year over year. Joining me, our political analysts, Republican Dick Wadhams, Democrat Mike Dino. So, Dick, I'll start with you. Critics say the problem with the bill, beyond the fact that it's 83 pages and is coming in the last 2 weeks of the session, is that lawmakers can adjust the relief at any time. Had they capped that residential assessment rate, they couldn't have raised that back up without approval. So I wonder if this bodes well for the ballot measures.
No doubt. I think the voters showed their skepticism of this scheme back in November when they killed HH by 20 points. And I think voters will be very wise to this little problem that you outlined. And I think the ballot proposals will speak more to what voters want than this monstrosity that they're putting forward.
They're simple, the ballot measures, right? Let's cut and cap. And voters tend to respond to the simplicity rather than the complicated. I mean, we knew Prop HH, part of the problem with it was that it was so complicated. The bill, Mike, would protect education funding, and it would partially fill special districts like
and local governments.
But only for 3 years with the local governments. Some of the money, now there's 4 different sources that they've identified, but some of it would be Tabor refunds. That's in part what killed Prop HH. Do you think this bill will pass?
Well, yeah, I mean, they put a lot of work into it, and Chris Hansen is you know, he dropped his bill on taxing short-term rentals, which he was really trying to get into play, and so now he's got all his effort on this one. 83 pages, you know, they had a commission. You know, it's hard. I mean, we got 12 days from today left in the session, ends May 8th, and so that's probably, time does play against this passing. But I do think, you know, the Dems have the votes to probably get it passed. They want to tweak it. I hear some local governments are a little unnerved about the backfill for them and just capping it at 3 years. But Dick's right. I mean, the simplicity of ballot measures is going to be a big advantage. And this is a complicated issue, but it's a good pocketbook issue that favors those who are really short and succinct in what they put on the ballot.
Right. That commission, the Property Tax Commission, and this came out of that Property Tax Commission, which has been meeting for 4 months. It did consist of both Republicans and Democrats. So it's not like this was just a Democratic idea, a Democratic bill.
Yeah, no, I think there's a bipartisan nature to it, which is nice. But again, it only deals in the margins for the most part. I mean, up to $450, really, you know, that's being saved, you know, as a maximum. And for some people, that doesn't, you know, that doesn't even get to half of what they've had to shell out in terms of increase because of the assessments.
This reminds me of the old adage that a camel is a horse created by committee. Anyway.
So, you know what is interesting, too, is that this bill does cap the commercial assessment rate. Well, not cap it, but it lowers it, and that would be a permanent lowering of that over 5 years. I think it goes from like 28.5 down to 25.5. But they didn't do that for the residential assessment rate.
Well, but the commercial's really high. I mean, because of the Gallagher Amendment going away, it kind of skyrocketed. So it's still pretty high.
Well, it was going to anyway with Gallagher.
All right. Well, also at the Capitol, Democrats sent their Republican counterparts a list of prohibited words this past week. They include illegal, alien, invader, interloper, squatter, and fresh off the boat. Democrats also had a list of acceptable words, including undocumented immigrant, undocumented person, non-citizen applicant, and new arrival. Republicans accused Democrats of silencing and censoring them. And it's not the first speech-related debate this session. Lawmakers have also clashed over references to transgender individuals. So, you know, Mike, some of these words are offensive, are hurtful. I just wonder, should Democrats tell Republicans how to speak. I mean, that's how they see it.
Yeah.
That they're silencing them just because they're the majority party.
I don't think that this is, I can tell you that it's not the first time. I mean, 2 or 3 years ago, I was in a committee meeting where a Democrat kind of scolded a Republican. And so it does happen. I mean, we're getting toward the end of the session. Tensions are high. People want to get the heck out of there. I mean, words do matter. And I think that, but to legislate or to, to kind of put it in the protocol, I mean, that isn't something we've seen. I'm not sure that's what people want to be doing at the legislature. But I do think people on the Democratic side, particularly, further to the left, are very sensitive about this. And, they would like to see, folks kind of adhere to, certain nomenclature.
Yes, that's an interesting way of putting it. So Dick, Minority Leader Rose Puglisi said Republicans won't be silenced. So
Good for her.
Are they going to continue to use these words,
Well,
do you think? And if so, what happens?
Clearly there are boundaries, and Republicans should be sensitive to that. But I agree with Representative Ron Weinberg when he alluded to George Orwell's 1984 and the speech police and dictating language to people. And the other thing is, what happened to the Democrats of the 1960s who talked about free speech? I mean, but they have come.
Well, we can get into book banning, Dick, if you want to. But
the Democrats are doing that right now, banning books. But no, I mean, it is. It's another capitulation to the far left. I don't believe the Speaker of the House really wanted to do this, but once again, this is the tail wagging the dog. I mean, that small group of Democratic socialists are telling her what to do, and she just falls in line and goes off and does it. And so that's the problem with the Democratic Party right now.
We do live in a politically correct world these days.
And it's discussed for a long time.
Yeah. Well, coming up, a special district in Colorado where residents have homes they can't sell and water they can't drink. What went wrong in Morgan County? Welcome back to Left, Right, Center. I've seen my share of government incompetence over the years, but I have never seen so many government entities botch things as badly as they have in Morgan County, where homeowners say their water district is now on the verge of collapse, and they are paying upwards of $200 a month for water they can't drink.
I moved here June 5th, 2020.
4 years after moving to Prairie View Ranch in Morgan County, Jesse McCoppin is disillusioned and disgusted.
That is our drinking water that we serve to the community.
He has water he can't drink, a home he can't sell, and hundreds of documents he almost can't believe.
The finances don't work, the elections don't line up with the dates, the signatures don't look real.
And safeguards at Prairie View Ranch Water District are missing entirely, leading to this. Black sludge with radioactive lead and uranium.
I don't even use water to brush my teeth.
Sheila Brown says it should have never come to this. She contacted the Water Quality Division in 2007, and it refused to intervene, saying the state doesn't regulate water systems that serve fewer than 25 people, even though this system was in violation of state regulations that require design plans be approved before construction. It was built with no approval, no regulatory oversight, and no centralized treatment. You're told basically from CDPHE, good luck, right?
Yeah, you're on your own.
It would take another 10 years before the state would step in. By then, the damage was done.
Every square inch of this place doesn't meet the regulations that engineers require for public water system infrastructure.
It wasn't just the infrastructure. The Water Quality Division discovered the water itself had unsafe levels of manganese and issued notices requiring developers warn residents, notices they ignored. Developers were also warned not to make any unapproved improvements or modifications to the system. Apparently, selling water taps isn't an improvement or modification. They sold dozens more to unsuspecting residents, and the state and county didn't stop them.
County Health Department and county commissioners and zoning had a responsibility to stop more people from getting dragged into this mess, and they just turned a complete blind eye to it.
McCoppin says Morgan County should have intervened before the system was even built. Special districts are tax-exempt government entities, but the water district was set up as a private for-profit company with a board run by developers and their families. And yet, both Morgan County commissioners and a district court judge signed off on it.
There are so many pieces of paper that show wrongdoing that were then accepted by this agency or that clerk or whatever. That why didn't somebody notice earlier?
It gets worse. McCoppin says when he and neighbor Sam Belmonte took control of the board in late 2021, they discovered $1 million missing. The state auditor's office, which exempted the district from financial audits for years, is now penalizing residents. The district attorney's office won't investigate. The attorney general's office won't even respond other than an automated reply. And the state has yet to take enforcement action despite nearly 200 violations. It advised residents
I pour my water in here.
to drink bottled water, even as some pay more than $200 a month in water bills.
Would you pay $200 a month for water you can't use? There's no accountability. None. Zero.
The developers, Doria Gibbs and John Pearson, declined an interview but claimed they hired a licensed engineer to design the system and thought it had been approved by the state. Residents say it is now beyond repair and they do not have millions of dollars to replace it. Their other option, to have another water district take over, but they say developers have refused to give up the water rights. Dick, at first, I will tell you, this is just appalling to me. There are 3,000 special districts in Colorado. I mean, that's a lot, you know, and there are reporting requirements for them. But the Department of Local Affairs, for example, the state auditor's office, they review those reports for missing information. They don't fact check them, not for false information. So is there enough oversight?
No, and I'll tell you, it is shameful that the state of Colorado, including the governor's office and his administration, and the Attorney General of Colorado, who likes to present himself as some kind of crusader for the little guy, and these folks getting nothing from them. And frankly, I understand that Morgan County government has ignored them too. So it's not just state, and it's not just partisan, but something's got to be done about this, Sean. Not just about this specific incident, but the legislature's got to take this up at some point. This is wrong. And I don't see how anybody can watch your story and not figure out that this is despicable.
Right, that it could happen to anybody,
Yes.
really, that moves into a special district. You know, Mike, one of the big criticisms of special districts is that developers are allowed to take out debt that homeowners then have to pay for. The governor did, I mean, there's been quite a few bills dealing with special districts, almost all of them have failed over the years. Representative Mike Weissman has been a real crusader on this, but the governor did sign a law last year that provides more transparency around the debt. Is it that special districts just have a powerful lobby down at the Capitol? I mean, I just can't understand why more isn't done to provide some oversight, some protections.
Well, there are a lot of special districts. Special districts do allow for infrastructure to be built in communities that can't afford to build it. Yeah. I mean, I live in Denver. Denver's always had a water system. They build their own streets. But special districts, we talked about the property tax relief, a lot of people really get nailed by special district fees and expenses, more so than even property tax. And it is probably something that we're seeing some bills in the legislature that are going to try to relieve some of that. But the bottom line is, I do believe local government has to pay more attention to what it's improving. I mean, when it gets to the state to blame the governor or the attorney general, I mean, it's a little beyond their reach. Certainly to get their attention to it and to get them to bring action to it is important, but local government needs to be paying more attention at the beginning.
Yeah, I'm not sure the attorney general couldn't look into this. I mean, they got automated replies twice
water's
from the
a big
Attorney
issue
General's
for the
office.
AG.
Yeah, exactly. And there was a law that was passed dealing with those fees that you can't foreclose on homes because they owe some overdue fees. That bill did pass.
Yeah, it did. And there'll be a bill too that will allow special districts to, for newer homes, reduce fees on water, particularly, and other services.
We're getting some progress
Yeah.
here, I guess. Well, finally, Colorado Parks and Wildlife says it will not take lethal action against 2 wolves that killed at least 4 calves in 3 days. The agency says one of the wolves is denning and about to reproduce, and it would be irresponsible. So, Mike, Governor Polis told Colorado Politics voters knew wolves were opportunistic hunters when they voted to reintroduce them. I'm not sure about that, whether voters knew that or not, but should he be maybe a little bit more sensitive to the ranchers?
Well, it probably calls for more dialogue. You know, the Corbell School of International Studies at DU brought 35 people together recently from rural and urban areas to discuss how we can move forward sustainably. Now, they didn't talk about the wolves, but dialogue's important here. I do think the state wants to, at some point, as the wolf pack grows, look at what they can do to deal with this. I mean, it's early in the process. There probably needs to be more conversation rather than, you know, letters going back and forth. But everybody has their opinion about whether we should adhere to what the voters approved. But, you know, the folks that have the actual animals being attacked are living it every day.
Yeah, speaking of what voters approved, Dick, as part of that ballot measure, the state has to compensate ranchers for livestock killed by wolves. But my understanding is nobody has even asked for that yet. I don't understand why they wouldn't, you know? Well,
Because there's a bigger issue here, Sean. The state has got to define what deprivation is so they can kill these wolves that are doing this damage. And by the way, I think there is dialogue, but it's one way. The ranchers are asking for definition of deprivation. They're asking for their herds to be protected from these wolves, and they're getting nothing from the state of Colorado. And we talked about it last week, Sean. This is another example of rural Colorado not being considered as part of the state. The people who put this on the ballot think the only thing that applies to Colorado is the Front Range and then throw in Aspen and Vail. I mean, and Telluride and the fancy ski counties. That's what they think Colorado is all about. And this is really disgusting. And like I said last week, it won't be until, well, first of all, when little Fluffy the dog is eaten by a wolf, that'll get some people's attention. But when a human is attacked and even killed, that's when we're going to see some real response to this. But it won't happen before then, frankly.
I hope it never happens.
I hope it won't either, but it will.
Yeah.
Mountain lions have been killing dogs for a long time.
Yes.
And so, I mean, we haven't done anything about that yet, but.
They were already here.
I think there's something in the works on that, too.
Yeah.
I've heard, but okay, we'll talk about that another time. Thanks for joining us for this installment of Left, Right, Center. We'll see you next week.